There would be very few people that I would encounter who aspire to be liveaboard sailors or are interested um, in my nautical lifestyle who didn't have an appreciation or a hunger even for what we commonly call freedom. And rightly so. I feel that a will to freedom is a natural human instinct, one that has been largely repressed in uh, Western society for a long time now, but some of us still can't help ourselves. I think any of us who have that lust for freedom will have felt that over the last, especially perhaps 5 years, events, whether involving various geopolitical conflicts or other kinds of global crises that we've been through, have given rise to interventions at the government level, let's say, or societal impositions, meaning um, tribal alliances and postures, whether dogmatism or virtue signaling, however you'd like to frame that. People lining up very quickly to, on both sides of any issue, as far as I can see, both sides. Whether you're a masker or not masker, people were pretty dogmatic about whether you should or you shouldn't, or whether you were smart or not. And the thoughtful, self-determined middle way um, seemed to be the least represented or traveled path. Now, there were a number of characters who were able to set themselves up, especially by commingling their message with this kind of peculiar pro-corporate backstory. You know, your Sam Harris's or your Weinstein grifters or your Jordan Petersons or, you know, there are others wannabe alpha climbers on that score, but those are big names. A lot of them were very able to launch themselves into prominence by being advocates for free speech. Obviously, Musk is another one of those free speechers, right? Free speech. He's a free speech absolutist, right? That's what he says. Um, Yesterday, the Israeli military shot nearly 1,000 people trying to get, well, basic food supplies out of a handful of trucks that were allowed into um, the occupied territory of Gaza yesterday. They say they felt threatened, right? Well, I mean, probably comes to the territory. You have a population there of which a third, credibly, is at the verge of complete famine. Innocent civilians. The civilian death toll in Ukraine, you had a risk factor of being a collateral damage in Ukraine of about 1 in 10,000. In Gaza, it's 1 in 20. 5% of the population of Gaza has been killed. You have a government in Israel that is specifically, candidly, formally stating that their intent is to eradicate the animal population of Gaza. This isn't any kind of conspiracy. This is what they say, completely openly. It's happening. It's happening in real time. It's all over your TikTok. It's all over. It's completely transparent that this is a mass atrocity event um, that is unparalleled in the modern era. I mean, there are historians who are trying to see if there are parallels in Dresden or perhaps Stalingrad, where the damage to the civilian population was similar? And the answer seems to largely be no. Now, what is really conspicuous to me is that I am sure that I can find individuals so devoid of moral compass that they will advocate and say that what is happening there to these people is somehow justified. Okay? And I hear them saying that, in fact, in the media. There's support for that. There's also support for the completely idiotic statement coming out of the mouths of some people that they don't see any evidence for that, or they still need more information, let's say. But there is a crowd that is conspicuously quiet here, all right? And it's worth thinking about because it pertains to the notion of freedom, and that is this. Among the free speech absolutists that have made careers for themselves, being outraged at the minutia of, I don't know, being asked to use particular pronouns in polite society, okay? Those people that are fighting that great fight, okay? They're completely silent about supporting free speech for individuals that would advocate against genocide, right? I know feminists who are silent about the 10, 12,000 women shot, bombed out of existence, their lives destroyed in Gaza, right? I know plenty of ecologists who are silent about salt water being pumped out of the ocean to try to flood tons, permanently destroying the agricultural viability of that tiny little strip of land. A war crime by any standard under international law, but they're silent. I haven't really heard anybody raise that. I certainly know individuals who rightly and for good reasons advocate for people of color around the world, but they are silent. They're silent. I could go on. Of course, I don't expect much from the likes of whores like Jordan Peterson, right? He will say what butters his bread, and the Gazans don't have any butter to share. So advocating for them isn't going to reward you. But setting aside the reprehensible display of the true moral character of so many of our thought leaders out there, their complete absence of moral compass, right? It becomes obvious. Setting that aside for a moment, I want to ask a very serious question, and that's this. The context of this is about freedom, all right? We believe in our culture that money buys you freedom, or that money and affluence is necessary to buy you freedom. I'm observing here that there is an inverse correlation between individuals who are affluent and their ability to mouth words like genocide, like occupation, like ethnic cleansing. The more money you have, it seems to me, the less able you are free to say those things. regardless of whether or not you're some free speech advocate or an advocate for people of color or for people of particular genders, quote unquote. It seems to me that your advocacy falls really flat. The advocacy of many of these people falls really flat the second it threatens their financial welfare, or it may threaten their job or their career or their what have you. It may be simply that what you see is that the industry of outrage, whether on the right or left, is just another careerist path that at its core has no character in it. It's just that outrage, whether about right-wing or left-wing issues, are simply gateways to prosperity for you. And that's all there is, okay? And the facade of there being righteous indignation about things is simply a dog and pony show. It could be that that's the case. But it isn't for nothing that it's been said that it is more difficult for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Does money buy us freedom? I'm sure the devils are in the details here, okay? But at this moment, it's something we ought to really think about. Cheers.